Hello and most welcome to 1835 of the Heidegger series. We will continue with an article by Hannah Strømmen, The Politics of the Beast, Rewiring Revelation 17. Last time we looked a bit into how making metaphors or metonymies will be the flesh of what you say. Words are having their meaning in accordance to how much we use them, in what context. It is always dependent on the situation. There is no unsituated meaning or lexical meaning. Everything is deeply ingrained, involved, related. And we also mention knowledge, wisdom, history. What I see and what I understand is always dependent on the history of me. What I have been doing for a very long time, or actually going back to the past of my culture that is constantly present. One can compare that to the classical model where we are disjunct entities with no connection either to history, the past, or the context that we are in, the intentions that we have. All those things disappear. It's well, you could possibly say it's a sort of forehand take on reality. We look at ourselves as if we were things in a lab, absolutely disconnected, not related to anything else in the world. Disjunct, I think it's a good term as well. Wittgenstein showed that is not the case at all. We are always involved in everything. There is a deep connectivity. But he doesn't claim it as an argument. Rather, he shows the problem with the disjunct ideas. How they lead to irreversible paradoxes. The paradoxes we mentioned in the previous article we read by Francis E. Lin are the ones of thinking and emotion. where is the locus for emotion? Does emotion has a living room or a place to live inside the head or in a vat? The insideness is problematic, leads to a lot of problems. But I would say it's the insideness of experience is unquestioned until Wittgenstein. In a way, it's such a trivial thing, so no philosopher would be bothered to even bring it up as an issue. But it is the thing that causes everything. The first mover, the demiurge of what's later become problems we cannot solve. And of course, as you all know, one of those problems are the problems with consciousness that have been tampered since the days of the pre-Socratics. So I'll continue to read from where I left off in 1832. A biblical political assemblage of evil. The book of Revelation is well known for its political animals. As Norman Kuhn points out, Revelation has proved extraordinarily adaptable and long-lived. The text is frequently treated as a tantalizing book of puzzles or a code to be cracked. Arguably, this has contributed to its remarkable resilience in the numerous and differing attempts to understand the significance of the figures of Revelation for the past, the present day, and the future. Part of this interpretation drive lies in the attention given to the beastly figures to be found in Revelation, and relatedly to the political imaginary they plug into it. Joachim of Fiore, for instance, saw the seven-headed dragon of Revelation 12 as Herod and Nero, as well as his own contemporary Saladin. While Martin Luther famously recognized the papist of his day in the Whore of Babylon. Revelation 17 presents a particularly potent assemblage of beastly evil in the form of the whore and beast. In this chapter, human political power is represented as beastly through the animal and the female. While divine sovereignty is represented as a lamb. Here, the human political and divine political are both cast as animals in competing constellations of power. The beast of Revelation is a hyperbolic hybrid creature described in Revelation 13 as a leopard, its feet were like a bear's mares, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. It is scarlet, full of blasphemous names, with 7 heads and 10 horns. The heads representing kings, of whom 5 have fallen. 1 is living, and the other has not yet come. A belligerent figure with power and authority. It is warmongering, making war on the land and those that are called chosen and faithful. The whole too is a sovereign power in opposition to the land, equally, if not more, bellicose, simultaneously described as a whore, woman, and queen. He rides the beast, rules over the kings of the earth, and manages to do all this while being drunk on the blood of the saints. And the blood of the witnesses to Jesus. The many-headed beast and the whore of Babylon are presented as a human form of sovereignty, alluding to Roman imperial rule. But as already mentioned with regards to Joachim of Fiore and Luther, the beast and the whore have not remained static images, for first century Roman rule. In the 21st century, President Obama has been represented as a beast by political enemies. While American preacher Al Lindsey associates the beasts of Revelation with the European Union. To smear the European Union, some have suggested that the beasts are housed in Europe in the form of a supercomputer in Brussels. looking back historically, the beast coming out of the sea has represented the English at war with the French in the 14th century. While during the Napoleonic Wars in the early 19th century, Germans saw the beast as Napoleon, and Paris as the Great Whore. Imagery pertaining to the Crusades gets caught up in depictions of the whore in, for example, the Flemish Apocalypse, which shows men representing crusaders attacking the whore. The whore is here linked with the Eastern other, the enemy of the Crusaders, an association that is taken up also by Albrecht Dürer and later by William Blake in their depictions of the whore. The depiction of the whore in this guise demonstrates an early version of the Western interpretation of the East as alien, exotic, and licentious. The identification of the whore of Babylon with the Catholic papacy emerged during the Reformation, as already mentioned, when Martin Luther compared the excesses and hypocrisy of the whore to the popes of his day. But this idea had already been prefigured by radical Franciscans and Wyclifites in more modern times, the beastly imagery in Revelation has been used to represent the South African government and Dutch Reformed Church during apartheid, as well as to represent the nuclear bomb in the 1970s. From the Napoleonic Wars to the First World War, the Cold War, Hillary Clinton, and the materialism and promiscuity of modern America, the whore and beast became an emblem for a multifaceted assemblage of political evil. It is clear that these beastly figures have become efficacious modes of designating theopolitical evil, linking the beast and the whore to what is seen as a base in the human history. Human world, sorry. In other words, what Revelation 17 might be said to do is to provide an effective model or machine for indicating different forms and figures of evil. The whore and beast together are particularly effective and affective assemblage for political evil. As I go on to discuss the female nature of the whore is a key aspect of this efficacy. but the animality is also central. The whore is deliberately animalized, while the beast comes in hyper animalized form by being assembled from several wild animals. In his work on the role animals or the animal have played, Derrida discusses the paradoxes in designating sovereignty as properly human against an animal other. While at the same time, the political has frequently been constructed as animal. Turning to his work, we might begin to discern what is at stake in this paradox and in the animal politics of Revelation 17. Through Derrida's deconstructed sovereignty, it might be possible to rethink the terms in which the political becomes caught up in a reasoning that rests on the violent exclusion of the and other. Deconstructed sovereignty in Derrida's later work, he examines the discursive apparatus of human-animal difference. The kind of apparatus that allows us to, as Derrida puts it, organize on a global scale the forgetting or misunderstanding of organized violence against animals. Which some would compare to the worst cases of genocide. The reference to genocide as a term normally reserved for human massacres is not incidental. Derrida is deliberately attempting both to force attention to the suffering of animals for the putative well-being of man, and at the same time obliquely point to the ways in which human genocides are frequently justified by deeming its victims non-human. As Neil Badminton affirms, not only does it cast a suspicious glance on the idea that there is anything proper, which is to say essential in an exclusive and binary sense to human beings. But he also interrogates the manner in which the logic of the proper functions to draw a simple and reductive dividing line between human and animal. In the Beast and Sovereign, Volume 1, Derrida explores the idea of sovereignty as a dominant conceptualization of the human in relation to the subjection of those it calls animals. the perception of this sovereignty has, he argues, being translated into a reason of the strongest. That is a reasoning or logic in which what is construed as the exclusive powers of the human, such as precisely reason, constitute a sovereign strength in the face of those that are deemed animal. On the one hand, then, the human as a political animal is superior in his very sovereignty to the beasts that he masters, enslaves, dominates, domesticates, or kills, so that his sovereignty consists in raising himself above the animal and appropriating it, having its life at his disposal. On the other hand, however, conceptions of the human political realm are frequently characterized as animal or beast-like. This paradox is mirrored in the way animals have tended to be seen either naturally innocent, without consciousness of good and evil, and therefore outside the moral political realm. Or as representing evil in the form of the beast, marked by brutality, poorly controlled instincts, the irrationality of the living being, attributes that can bleed into the human political realm and must therefore be suppressed, externalized, kept at bay, This is how we might read the lamb, as a designation of innocence outside the human political realm, while the poor beast represents the brutality and beastliness of human political sovereignty. I think that could be an apt point to put a pause to go for some remarks, some summary here. Last word here being sovereignty. Notoriously hard to pronounce. Sovereignty, sovereignty. We can go to the first page we read. Oh, it's actually the page 150. Sorry there, Kalle. At the end of that page, we have an interesting hint. The last paragraph. The many-headed beast and the whore of Babylon are presented as a human form of sovereignty, alluding to Roman imperial rule. I think the last one there is particularly important. The many-headed beast and the whore of Babylon has its legs placed in the bedrock of what has taken place. What has happened? We go to page 151. There are different mentionings from the very start of the page. President Obama has been represented as a beast by political enemies, while American preacher Al Lindsey associates the beast of Revelation with the European Union. And if we go to the second paragraph here, third line, the whore is here linked with the Eastern other, the enemy of the Crusaders, an association that is taken up also by Albrecht Dürer and later by William Blake in the depiction of the whore. So the metonymy or the metaphor is actually a mixture of both and more, because it has anaphorical traits as well. It is deeply ingrained in the bedrock of history, or what has taken place, I would say even, which is much more than history. I think we could see history as Heidegger does, as the known things to have happened. A sort of an expansion of written and oral history. But when it talks about Geschichte, it's much more. This is what has taken place, which we are not aware of and can never be. The much larger portion, which is implicit, which is in the daily doings, in our life world. Just as Wittgenstein showed in the slab example, what is possible to point out is only a very, very small portion of what we have. We have actually much more. We are standing on a mountain of doings, actions that make these words, the whore of Babylon, the beast, to have force. And of course, the point here is to see how forceful these words are and how forceful they have become thanks to thousands of years of usage. If we could please go color to page 152. And at the very beginning, Hannah is stating what I'm trying to translate. It is clear that these beastly figures have become efficacious modes of designating political evil, linking the beast and the whore to what is seen as a base in the human world. It's a bit stating the obvious, but the words have the powers that thousands of years and doings designating have made them to become. This equals pretty well what we previously said about the heavenly Jerusalem that takes its flesh from the already established doings of Rome. The mighty palace of Nero, with its gardens, with even lakes and rivers on the inside. An actual doing, something that happened. An absolute necessity for it to be telling, to have meaning, to have force. The tropes of the beast and the whore of Babylon have force thanks to all usage of millions and millions of people in different situations, in relation to each other, making them strong, efficacious, as Hannah calls it, and possible to be used. And even the beast itself, if you look a bit further down on that page, or at that very paragraph, mid-sentence there, it's about the 8th line, and I'm going to start with the but of Hannah. But the animality is also central. The whore is deliberately animalized, while the beast comes in hyper-animalized form by being assembled from several wild animals. And you have it even there. It's a concussion. It's a relation of already established tropes, animals. This is what makes it strong. At the end of that paragraph, there is an interesting hint. Through Derrida's deconstructed sovereignty, it might be possible to rethink the terms in which the political becomes caught up in a reasoning that rests on the violent exclusion of an other or the other. I'll call this polarity now, or antagonistic thinking. And that undermines, I would say, to a certain extent, the force of the words, because it ignores most of the relations, or at least a great portion of them. Placing the word nowhere. One famous polarity we mentioned so many times over and over again is, of course, signed, signified. But here using it too much in exclusion will in the end, oddly enough, rid both beast and the whore of their power. And I think that has happened partly today. We make a polarity and we say history is for some reason only the written history, which is maybe 1,000,000% of the history. And we make history or Geschichte, what happened, into another and non-existing thing. Not having the force of telling. Deconstructed sovereignty, the next paragraph. I will not make this too long-winded, but I need to add this. Derrida is into his project of making language speak again by making the polarity less damaging to what we're saying and the text. And about 6 or 7 lines down, we have, after a semicolon, Derrida is deliberately attempting both to force attention to the suffering of animals for the putative well-being of man, and at the same time obliquely point to the ways in which human genocides are frequently justified by deeming its victims non-human. A sort of illicit use of these powerful tropes. He's diffusing this polarity, and for many people, you think that now it's going to lose its power, but it's just the opposite. Aptly used in the right context, in a contextualized use, as we said in the lecture by Francis Lin. This is where language shines forth, where its brilliance comes to the fore, when it's doing its business. We are cast in the Geschichte, what has happened, and we have been progressing polarities with what I call technological thinking, but of course also mainly caused by the misunderstanding how language works. Kalle, please enter.
Thank you. I will. Do you hear me well? Do you hear me well?
You need to maybe speak a little bit louder,
Okay.
if possible.
So let me repeat this phrase. The whore is deliberately animalized, while the beast comes in hyper-animalized form by being assembled from several wild animals.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, so I have a question here to you, Hans. You mentioned concussion, and what do you mean with this phrase? What is your point with this phrase? Concussion and so forth. Explain it again. Right.
Come again, what was the phrase I said?
You mentioned concussion in this context.
Concussion?
Yes.
No, I don't think concussion.
Okay, then I misheard you. But what is your point with this phrase, or what do you think here?
Well, everything comes from use and relations. And the beast is here an assemblage of several wild animals. And these animals in their turn have connections that go back into the Geschichte, into what has happened before.
Yes, absolutely. You probably have allusions to the book of Daniel in the Old Testament and so forth.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let me read this phrase. And I will go to the word that I think is a key word in this paper, namely static. I will read the whole phrase. But as already mentioned with regards to Joachim of Fiore and Luther, the beast and the whore have not remained static images for first century Roman rule. And then Hanna Strømmen gives examples of this. Many examples, and I will not repeat them.
President Obama and the European Union.
But she implicitly affirms that there is stability in the original.
Yeah, doesn't it? Very good.
So the stability would be that for John, the beast, and this whore would be Rome.
Yeah.
Why would there be stability in the first century if there was? Why would it be unstable later on? And let me mention a scholar. I think it's not Francis E. Lin that we have now studying. Francis E. Lin is a Wittgenstein specialist, but it's another Francis Olonay. So you see here, he's a priest, Catholic priest, and he has published many books. And yesterday I got a book from him, his commentary, this one, that the University Library of Gothenburg was kind enough to buy to me. And he affirms, and some other scholars as well, that this whore Babylon and the beast represent Jerusalem. That is the old enemy, the enemy within, so to say. So
interesting.
Say like this: the beast and the whore have not remained static images for first century Jerusalem. If you get my point. So Malone makes a mistake in another direction. He affirms stability for the enemy being Jerusalem.
I see.
The same, all are assuming that there is a stability in the image, the first century image. Okay, a minority like Malone affirmed that the enemy for John was Jerusalem, while majority of scholars affirm the enemy was Rome. But I think I'm disagreeing with everybody. So I'm saying it's both Jerusalem and Rome. Jerusalem represents the enemy within, while Rome is the enemy outside.
Well, that seems apt.
So, if I use my banal proverb, John killed two birds with one stone.
Indeed.
So to say. So this is the mistake that everybody makes. Stability at the beginning, but there is no stability even in the beginning, as we know, from instance, from quantum physics, from Carlo Rovelli and so forth. So this is actually anti-scientific, if you may say. Hanna Strømmen, I mean, all the other scholars, they're anti-scientific because they reason from Newton's classical physics as a base, even though they are not aware of it.
If I may add two things there, both from Newton, if you like. One is that the explicit history or the explicit relations are the only ones. which makes everything, the explicit relations and what we can talk about is tops 1/1,000,000th of a percentage of what is behind what has happened. And that is, of course, the conclusion of the three Nobel Prize laureates, Alan Aspect, Clauser, and Zeilinger. There is no local reality. Everything is global. And the global reality, we can't define it because it's it's enormously big. And of course, you can just hint at it, and Hannah maybe go too far. I don't know, but just a suggestion. By trying to say, what is the meaning of the word the beast, which is absolutely impossible. But of course, you can still make some pointers. I think I do agree with that. Very interesting.
So let me end something with
the Animal Farm, yeah.
I don't know if you have it fresh in your mind, but we could. It was published in 1945, as you know, and you have there there's a dictator, a pig named Napoleon.
Yeah.
And it's fun, this pig, because it's for Jews it was an unclean animal. For John, he was somewhere between being a Christian and a Jew. So for John, the pig would have been an ambiguous animal. Christians can eat anything, including pigs. But for Jews, it was something horrific, of course. So I don't know if Orwell thought about, if he had this in mind about the pigs, that they are something.
Well, yeah, it's still participatory. You're not outside the relation. So yeah, why not? Yeah.
And I would like to end with some funny picture of this pig Napoleon. Let me see. Pig Napoleon. Pig animal. Pig Napoleon. So is this up? Let me see.
Oh, there he is. Oh. Oh no.
So this is the modern correspondent. I don't know. No.
Oh, Stalin as well.
No. Napoleon is always right. Tell me if you see your favorite image somewhere.
Yeah. I'll choose that animal, the red one there. That's what I like one.
Which one?
The red one.
The red one, you mean this one? No.
Yeah.
This one?
No, to the left. That's one. I like that one. More happy.
He looks like Al Capone almost.
Here he looked like a capitalist. So it goes to show he can be used to all forms of evil.
So this is, we could say, Orwell's pig is the modern variant to John's Whore of Babylon and the Beast. I think is represented by this pig Napoleon, the Whore of Babylon and the Beast. I think they are come together in this dictator Napoleon.
Definitely.
I think it's because it's appropriate because of pig being something potentially unclean.
Yeah. And so it's interesting
if you have liked this image.
Yeah, and if you compare, for instance, with Asia, they don't have really that depiction of it being unclean. It's more like healthy, sturdy food. But their Geschichte is, their relations are different.
No, as a last note, I could say that, as you know, we have discussed previously, gender studies were very popular. They many applied gender studies to the popular, and now monster theory is popular. and this is Hannah Strømmen, I think also sees in the monster theory. And it would be curious to see if somebody has applied with a comparative analysis between Orwell's Animal Farm and a Book of Revelation. I think that would be fascinating study.
Okay, yeah, why not? Excellent idea. Well,
so I'll let you say some last words, Hans.
No, I think that's absolutely beautiful, but let me just sum it up. We are cast in what happened before, and the explicit meaning, the idea of the signified, is just a small fraction of reality, maybe 1/1,000,000th of a millionth of a percentile, and confusing the written down history, the verbal history, and a bit war with what has happened is an enormous mistake. Wittgenstein never made that mistake, and I'll trust Derrida neither. Well, thank you very much, Kalle Lundell, for your excellent comments. Thank you everyone for listening in. Have a very pleasant morning, day, or afternoon. Bye-bye for now.